Guru Nation, welcome back to the clinicaltrialsguru.com. This is Dan Sfera. This is also going to go on random musings of the Clinical Trials Guru. So thank you and everyone for listening on the podcast wherever you may be. That's been growing, Daniel. Podcast's been growing. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been growing.
Okay.
There's a little delay, but yeah,
Cool.
it's
Can
been
you hear?
growing.
Checking audio. Okay.
Yeah, audio's good. So I'm talking to the CRA coach from thecracoach.com. And we're going to be talking about. Well, Daniel, introduce yourself. We did an interview 2 weeks ago, but we want to do one a little differently, and I'll,
Yes, we did.
yeah, and selfishly, because I'm a CRA, and so I'm going to ask you stuff that I run into on my infrequent site visits as an amateur CRA. Even though I have a senior CRA title, I'm an amateur. But yeah, who are you, Daniel? Why should people care?
Yeah, well, I am a CRA at one of the major CROs that are out there in the field, and I've been involved in clinical trials for almost a decade now, and yeah, I've been around quite a bit. I was in clinical research in Europe, in Germany, and Austria, and a little bit over a year ago transitioned over to the United States. So I monitored on both continents. I can confirm ICH GCP truly is international. There's not too much of a difference between both continents. And yeah, at this CRO that I'm working at, I am a mentor for CRAs and now also a CRA coach, basically with focus on not so much giving you the 20th time that you hear the definition of an SAE and the reporting guidelines and things like that, but more for when you're in a situation where, okay, you've gone through all the trainings as a CRA that they throw at you. So you've gone into your company's training database and you've checked off training number 142 and you're complete, you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically where I pick up CRAs and show them basically a system that takes care and covers everything and automates most of the CRA processes. Funny enough, there's no one out there that I know of that teaches this. Everybody throws all those trainings at you, and then you're like, okay, fuck it. You go out to a site, you forget 5 things your first time that you're out, and then you need 3 drinks at the bar, at the hotel, at the evening, just to unwind again.
Yep.
Because it is a profession, clinical research, that has a 0% error margin.
Hmm.
I
What does that
mean,
mean? What does
that's
that mean?
just you can't forget to collect a protocol signature page. We need it in the trial master file. You can't forget to follow up on an important protocol deviation and just not have documented it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't have retrained your site on something that obviously they'd overlooked or hadn't been doing perfectly or per protocol, and not document this training to have
Okay.
it filed in the trial master file and at
Yes,
the site and
I
so
get
forth.
it. I get it. So
So,
we're gonna get into a lot of that. It's perfect because like I said, I don't consider myself a CRA, but I have a part-time gig, contract gig, to teach my students better when they're learning what it takes to be a CRA. And we have real CRA instructors in the class, but also to help me learn how to build my CRO. So it's been very helpful for me to have that experience because I've been doing this for 12 years and I've interacted with monitors from the site level for 12 years, but it's a little bit different when you're on the other side of that table. It's a different process. As a site, you're just reacting to whatever the CRA is asking of you. You react, right? Like you don't have a
mhm,
plan. When a CRA comes in here for a visit, unless it's a site selection visit, as a site, we don't have a plan. Like whatever they want, we're gonna help them out with. I don't care if they ask me for a protocol signature page or they don't. I'm
mhm,
not gonna tell them what to do. For me, those are easy, right? Like as a site. But as a CRA,
mhm,
you have to have a plan. Like you need to know what you're doing when you go in there. The site's not gonna tell you what you need to do,
mhm.
right? Like
Yeah,
you need to
absolutely.
know. And so what happens? Okay, let's give some value nuggets here for people watching. I know there's many of you watching despite my warnings to not lie on your CV. No liars. People do lie, Daniel. Go figure. People lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so they
White
get
lies
hired.
in life, who can avoid them?
Who can avoid? But
But
here's what
I'll go on,
happens.
carry on.
Here's what happens. They get hired. They think everything's cool, right? Like
Hmm.
all the stress. Okay, good. I got a job finally, and it actually pays me well. Okay, now they're asking me to do a site initiation visit. I don't know what that is. Let me go on YouTube and look,
Hmm.
right? That's not enough. You're going to get fired.
Yeah, yeah. Or if they really do in-depth research, background check,
Mm, it's not going to fly.
you're in trouble. Yeah, and stuff like that is just way too complex. It really doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter
Mm-hmm.
actually what kind of a visit type it is. If you've like never done it, but you claim, oh, I've already done 20 SIVs just in the last half year, I'm ready to go,
Right.
and then you get hired. And they're like, okay, wonderful. You're starting on Monday, and then Monday is your meeting basically, and then they're telling you, okay, cool. Tuesday you're flying out because Wednesday and
Yes.
Thursday is SIVs, and so is next
Yes,
Monday and
yes.
Tuesday.
I
What's a technical
always
term? You're in deep shit then.
Yes, you are. You are. I always tell my students, don't lie. There is a difference, however, between
Yeah.
puffery and lying. Example, let's say I've done 11 monitoring visits in my entire career, okay? It's okay to say I've done dozens, in my opinion. Now, some people may say, well, you're crossing the line. I don't care. Everyone has their own compass. But when you haven't done any, and you've just watched YouTube videos, and you say, yes, I've done many of these, I can't even count how many I've done. Okay, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Puffery, everyone does it to some extent. Lies, mm, a lot less do
Yeah.
it, but many still do, and they end up getting hired, and then they end up not knowing what the hell they're doing.
Because the learning curve is so steep. I mean, what you just mentioned, this example, like you've never done an SIV, and compared to like, well, I've done like 11. I mean, you have seen so much at that point, compared to when you're just starting
Yes.
and just trying to get a grip on everything. I used that term in the first interview. You're going to sink like a rock. I mean, and that's just the truth. I mean, but if you've already done like 11, compared to that being 36, I don't think there's still
You,
going to be stuff you have learned, but that's
mm-hmm.
like on top of your first basic experience that you gathered,
The
and
80%,
where
the
you
80/20 rule applies, and anything else after that, it's like diminishing returns, I think. Basically, anything after 2 years of experience as a CRA, anything new that you learn is diminishing returns. Like, you're going to learn 80, if not more, percent of what you're ever going to need to know in that first 2 years.
yeah, yeah, that is true. That is true, and it's also one of the main pain points of being a CRA is the high stress level.
Mm.
I mean, I've co-monitored with a lot of my colleagues and hung out with them after we left the site. And it's funny how you can be super formal and you're checking everything because you are the monitor, and then you leave the site and you hang out at the bar and they're completely different people.
Really? So they're totally different.
They could be quite laid back, yeah. But what I've also noticed is that a lot of my colleagues basically, well, they need a couple of drinks after work to just ground themselves again from the stress level. I mean, I've heard this number in literally four different trainings over the years that I've had at different companies. So I do assume that it is kind of true that every day and delay of getting a drug to market costs the sponsor somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million.
Yes, it costs a million
Because yeah,
dollars a day to get a drug from preclinical all the way to market. A million a day. Yep.
exactly. So obviously, if you're new to monitoring or clinical research, that's how much margin for wasting time is. There is literally none, and who is that? I think in the MIBs, we have no sense of humor that we're aware of, and that's what happens when time gets wasted, basically.
Jeez.
So
Well, let's give
yeah,
a
yeah.
let's give a value nugget here, okay? Let's say someone's watching, they're a new CRA. They didn't lie. Let's say they got in entry level. Well, no, entry level is not a good idea or a good example because they're given training, right? Like they're not
Mm,
expected. Let's say you embellished your capabilities. Okay,
mm,
so you've done like 10 monitoring visits, but it was like long ago, like 2 years ago. You kind of forgot what you're doing, so you're essentially starting over. But they don't
mm.
know that. They think that you know what you're doing, so they say, okay, thanks. Next week you're going on a IMV at this site. Here's the protocol. What would you recommend that CRA do prior to that visit and then at the visit? Like give them the 80-20 rule. Do this 20% and you've got 80% covered.
So you're asking me to help somebody cheat or save their ass once they've
Save
done
their
it.
ass.
Um, yeah, yeah. Well, in that kind of situation, I'd hope you would have kept some of like I don't know some information from when you did those visits. I mean, kind of like any kind of stuff that you set up for yourselves, your basic information compilation, stuff like that. Um, but basically, there's no way around uh, digging into all the stuff that you need to check. Then, I mean, obviously, we spoke about that in the first interview. You can grab the trip report. If you're new to the company, you've just done their SOP trainings,
Mm-hmm.
right? So obviously grab the SOP for that kind of visit type. We're talking about interim monitoring visit, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So obviously grab that SOP, see what they expect from you. You've looked at the trip report. Um, and yeah, look into the database. You will hopefully have access to your colleagues' trip reports.
Oh, do
In
you? Okay.
general, at big CROs,
Okay.
you should, at least on your project, you should be able to look into if
I
we're doing
see.
IMVs
Okay.
right now, most likely you're not doing the first IMV, but you're doing like IMV 5 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So look into trip reports from previous IMVs. Look those up.
For outstanding
Not
issues, right?
only to see yeah, no, not only that, sure, absolutely, but also what did your colleagues cover? What's in
Mm-hmm.
those trip reports? So what kind of information did they need to gather? Because those are obviously approved trip reports.
Okay.
So they were good enough. So that's something that I would be reviewing. And like you mentioned, obviously any open follow-up items for that site, and look at the confirmation letters
Mm-hmm.
from the previous visits, depending on what company you're working. And I've seen everything from you just highlight your visit in a database, you click a button, and you get a completed Word document that you just need to fine tune,
Right.
to here's a blank Word document, write a confirmation letter.
You've seen that? Blank, okay. Wow, so no
pretty
templates.
pretty much. So that you'd basically you'd pull like a small biotech. Yeah, but yeah. So look up previous confirmation letters.
Mm-hmm.
Use them as your template, and yeah, and then basically make sure that you're aware of everything that you need to review during the IMV, everything you need to discuss with the site, everything you
Mm-hmm.
need to look at, be it some kind of calibration
Yeah.
of their stuff that's expiring. Do
And
you need to follow up?
what would you need to collect copies of, and then what would you need to collect the originals of at a IMV?
Well, it depends because you'd have to look at what do we already have in the TMF. So if you're working at a CRO that has like in-house CRAs that are managing that, which is always awesome as a CRA, basically touch base with them. What kind of outstanding documents do you have? If it's all on you as a CRA, you'll have to do the research yourself, basically according to what kind of a TMF your company is working with, and check basically do we have everybody who's on the FDA 1572? So that's one thing you're going to want to look at is the most recent version of the FDA 1572. All those nice people on there. Do we have their CVs? Do we have their GCP certificates? Medical licenses? That's one difference between Germany and Europe and the United States. Medical
Mm-hmm.
licenses in Germany don't expire.
Okay.
So anybody watching from Germany, in the United States, they do expire. So
Mm-hmm.
check that those are all up to date. And there's basically a ton of stuff. I mean, all the sub investigators are they trained on everything? Do we have documentation of their training? Not only that they are medically trained to do what they're doing, but have they reviewed the current protocol? And if you're
Yes.
like at Amendment 4 and you have 5 sub investigators, that can be fun. But you have to confirm that they've been trained in a timely fashion for each amendment version. Same for investigator brochure
Mm-hmm.
editions.
Okay.
Have they not only reviewed it the first edition, but when edition 2 and 3 came out, did they do we have documentation that they've been updated on it, on the changes and information? Because obviously there was new safety information on the study drug
Mm-hmm.
that prompted a new IB version.
Yeah. What I'm looking at my CRO I work for as
Yeah.
a contractor, and I'm looking at an IMV report right now actually, and it says here's the documents that need to accompany the report. So the confirmation letter, the follow-up letter, the site visit log, and then they leave it vague here, but all documents collected, anything updated except for correspondences. So literally everything that has been
And
updated.
and that is quite vague, and that leaves it to you, the CRA,
Yep.
because should our good friends of the FDA show up, or should the sponsor do an audit, and you have somebody looking at this stuff, well, one of the things they want to see, obviously, is delegation log. Who's been delegated to do what, and were they qualified and trained to do that?
Mhm.
And so those are the things that you want to make sure you've not only been looking at, but then really depending on your company's requirements too, and your trials requirements sometimes
Mhm.
within the company. For whom do we actually really need it? Some companies are like, well, we only want CVs of the people on the FDA 1572. There may be other sponsors or companies that say, well, the study coordinators, we want them too.
You want them to,
Or if they're
yeah.
using a local lab, we want like the lab people or the head of the lab at least,
Mhm.
or head pharmacist if they're using a pharmacy.
Right.
So you really need to look into the requirements. Which documents do we really need?
Which ones do
And
you need? Which who needs to be trained?
yeah,
Would you take a copy of the protocol training log if you did a training? Is that common?
what I always try to do basically is scan it on site.
Okay.
And the company I work for, we thankfully we have in-house CRAs,
Yeah.
and I'll actually I try to build a really good relationship with my sites, and then they usually, or actually all of them, will be happy when you ask them, "Hey, these are the documents. Could you scan them and send them to the in-house?" And they've been in
Uh.
touch with the in-house by then,
Okay.
obviously, because they've been doing a
Yeah.
bunch of communication back and forth. So, could you do me a favor, just scan those and send those to Mark today? That'd be cool. And then they'll scan
Okay.
them and send them over. And
Gotcha.
try to stay away, or I try to stay away from dragging along any photocopies home. So that usually works. And if you have a site that's just like they're not in the mood to cooperate with you today,
Mhm.
which can happen, then obviously you'll collect copies, or then I actually first ask them if we can scan them, and obviously they have scanners that can email them to them, and
Mhm.
if they could email it to me, if they
Okay.
could do me that favor. Um,
So
and any
basically, however you can get them, but try to get the digital versions rather than physical copies.
with the exception of those documents where you need wet ink signatures filed in a physical trial master file, like protocol page signature pages, stuff like that, or the original FDA 1572. Depending on your company's requirements, look at them. You will
Mhm.
have a document, and that's also a cool thing, and it kind of like ties into your embellishing CRA scenario.
Mhm.
If they're good questions, you can always ask. Like a rule of thumb for myself, with system issues, with something I just don't really get yet, or my learning opportunity of the day, I will just go up the food chain
Hmm.
to, if there's a lead CRA, or a clinical team manager or CRA manager, and reach out to them and shoot them a quick email, pick up the phone, send them an IM, whatever works quickest. Um, but the thing, so don't waste too much time. Like, don't waste too much time. If you notice you're getting stuck somewhere, reach out to somebody who should know and just ask.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be there all day. I'm in one of my sites right now, and
Yeah.
we had a CRA that routinely, and this is one that cried, not on my shoulder, but on one of our staff members. Like, she was so stressed out, she
Yeah.
started literally crying in and she would come in around 9 a.m. and she would stay until 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And
Um,
the coordinator was really
send
nice.
her my way to the CRAcoach.com.
She's super senior. Like, it's
Yeah.
amazing how, like, yeah, I will. Actually, we don't have that study anymore. It closed out, but I think she retired. Because so this stuff can get stressful for anyone, regardless of experience, right?
Well, do you know what her issues were? I mean,
No.
without like giving too much away about her or whatever, but like
I
general.
I was far removed from it, but from what I understood, just the demands placed on her from project management seemed like
Yeah.
overbearing. Um,
I mean, sometimes you can have that. I mean, I'm lucky to be with a company that really, honestly, values work-life balance,
mhm,
and I'm lucky with both managers on both sides. My functional manager for myself, and
mhm.
within the project. So I'm in a really good situation there. Yeah. But I know
And
there are
she could
companies
have
and
had any
situations.
job. She could have had any job, but she didn't want to switch.
Okay.
So yeah, and our coordinators are super nice. They would accommodate her until like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. to the point where like they would text me. I was already home, and they're texting me at like 10:30. Hey, we're
Yeah.
still here, and I'm like,
I mean, being a CRA, and like on site, that scenario, it's such a high focus job. I mean, your job is to cross check and verify and look really closely at so much stuff. I mean, not only do the signatures match, and just doing source data verification, just looking at written source data versus what's in the database, what's in the EDC, what's in the source, and finding the next source, because it's not all on one page. I mean, it's somewhere in the patient binder. So it takes such a strain on your concentration that if you started like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're still trying to do that 12 hours later, I mean, that's like trying to cut down a tree with a butter knife.
yeah. And
I
Daniel, we
mean,
didn't have that
your
much
mind
activity.
is,
We didn't. The one thing I do
yeah,
remember about that study, we were not high enrollers. We were
yeah,
below average enrollers actually for that study. So
yeah.
I just didn't
It's
get it.
Yeah, because that's actually also one of the parts of the coaching, is something that few people talk about, and I'm by no means any esoteric type or something like that, but it is actually the practice of meditation,
Ah,
um,
yeah,
because
we
that's
started doing
something
that
I
myself
use.
actually. Yeah.
Cool, absolutely, because my analogy is always, uh, I always do the same thing. I'll ask somebody. Actually, I can do this with any viewer or you right now. Um, if you set your alarm clock to like 60 seconds, and you say, for the next 60 seconds, I am now going to decide that I'm not going to think.
Impossible for me. And for probably for most people.
Okay, so we've established that fact. The second fact is, well, what is your main tool as a CRA? It's your mind. It's your brain.
Hmm.
That's what you need. You're focusing, you're managing, you're organizing, you're
Right.
communicating. It's your brain. So we've just established that we obviously, if you can't decide, I'm going to stop thinking for just 60 goddamn seconds. I mean, it's not like I can't think any more in
Yeah.
my life, but just that decision, I'm going to stop it for like 60 seconds. If anybody can't make that, then obviously there's not full control
Hmm.
over your main tool that you need at work.
Hmm.
And that is something that very few people I've noticed have ever looked into. It's kind of like a blind spot. It's like kind of, oh, I never looked at it, but now that you mention it, yeah, that is kind of weird.
Hmm.
And uh, and that's where meditation techniques come in, where you actually learn to calm your mind and let it rejuvenate itself, which is what it does. And you don't have to wear a weird hat or wear colors in a clothes in a funky color or anything like that.
Right.
It's really just the scientific fact-based thing is there's easy meditation techniques that are purely technical that I also teach in the coaching that really work with no prerequisites. You don't have to be a good person or anything else to
Hmm.
be let through the golden pearly gates of meditation. But it's kind of like working in a butcher shop. If you were working in a butcher shop and you've been slashing away at meat for like 4 hours, and you look at your butcher knife for the first time, and then you notice, shit, you can actually sharpen these things. And then you just invest like 5 minutes. You're not working in those 5 minutes, granted, yeah. None of your meat's getting cut in those 5 minutes, but you're just doing something completely different. You're sharpening your knife. And then you get back to work with that sharpened knife for the next 4 hours. That's exactly the difference that a quick
Good
meditation
analogy.
technique makes for CRA, and I guess a bunch of other jobs too. But I'm a CRA, so
Oh, it
that's what
works
I'm concerned
for
with.
site owners. Yeah, I mean, it could be equally stressful. I actually think it's more stressful being a CRA than a site owner, but that's another topic. But
Well,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
but if that girl's sitting there till 10 o'clock in the evening at your site,
yes.
I would have highly recommended to her to interrupt like after 3 hours and just do a 5 minute meditation. And usually, as a CRA on site, I mean, if you're working from home, you're working at home. Nobody's watching you. Who gives a rat's ass?
Hmm.
Do a quick meditation. Nobody's going to ever know about it.
Hmm.
And if you're on site, quite often you're on your own in some room locked away
Yep.
with just a neon light
Yeah,
and
a
no
desk, a
window.
light. Yeah.
um, yeah, so who cares? Who cares? Nobody's going to actually even ever know about it. And even if so, who cares? Because what you're doing is increasing your productivity. That's what you're doing. Because I can tell you from my own experience, when I notice that my brain is just starting to slow down, it's two things. I need to drink more water,
Ah.
and I should do a quick meditation. And if I do those two things, usually I'll gulp down a bunch of water. And while those electrolytes start getting into my bloodstream, I'll do a quick meditation. And I can, honest to God, I notice it immediately when I get back to my keyboard that
Hmm.
I just hit the keys much quicker. It's just, I'm like, wow, okay, cool, I'm back again. So I highly recommend anybody looking into that. Yeah, just a
The
side note, when I hear somebody doing 10 hours of monitoring, I have no idea how you want to stay focused. Not, I'd be, if I, yeah, first of all, I wouldn't hopefully ever be stuck in a situation where I'd be monitoring till 10 p.m. But
Yeah, and I told my site, like the
I
coordinators,
understand that crying.
you have to draw boundaries, like from the site level. I told my coordinators, all right, look, I mean, monitors are no different than anyone else. Some of them try to push boundaries and see how long they can stay. And if you don't tell them to leave, they're going to continue staying there. Eventually, it's going to become midnight. So you got to at some point tell them, hey, our hours are between this and this. If you need anything else, let me know, or let me know. This is what I've told the monitors before. Let me know. We're leaving at 6. Let me know around 3 if I need to help
Mm,
you with something so we can both get out of here by then. That's what I've done, and it's worked well in the past. But you have to draw boundaries. So just a little advice for the sites out there as well. You don't need to accommodate your monitor if they want to stay till midnight. All right, like there's no brownie
yeah,
points there.
and if you are a CRA that's stuck, if it's the monitor who was at your site, it should be watching this video that if you were at Dan's site till like 10 o'clock at night, um, and you're doing your best, obviously. and you just couldn't get more done quicker. And you've been around for a certain amount of years, and you've really got your stuff nailed down. My only recommendation is honestly look for another employer, because obviously your employer is not looking after you. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're required to do 12-hour monitoring visits, that's just getting burned. I mean, and there's enough CRAs out there that are getting burned, and maybe go on Glassdoor.com.
That's right.
For people who don't know about it, Glassdoor.com. I mean, obviously most will, but for those who don't, it's a website where employees basically leave comments and ratings for the company they're working for or have worked for, and look up the comments in the CRA sections. Sign up for, takes you 30 seconds and $0.
Hmm.
And then when you have your own account there, look up and filter for CRA feedback at companies, and look for one of those companies, because
Yep.
I know for a fact that there are CROs that did have quite negative comments, and management becomes aware of those things, and then they made great efforts to turn that around. And the only way to turn that around was to make their CRAs happier. So those CROs, or even sponsors maybe, that are burning CRAs like that, they definitely have to rethink and reorganize and remanage, and change that,
Hmm.
because that's no life. That is a 2-day IMV, end of story. You're out of the site 5 p.m. and you'll be back the next morning. And if somebody tells you, I mean, that's also that kind of worry that I know from CRAs. Is kind of like, if I'm not fast enough, if I'm not, then I'm not good enough. Then whatever. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
be happy to coach anybody to make you more efficient. I mean, we mentioned that sometime else, that basically I guarantee any CRA through the coaching will increase their productivity by 20 to 30%. I do guarantee that, but if somebody's out at the site at 10 p.m., I don't really think that's the main issue there.
Yeah, I
Look for another job.
this CRA actually happened to be a good one because she was, despite what I
Yeah.
just said, she would train our new staff members. Like she would take it as her personal responsibility to train them, and so
Hmm.
that was much appreciated from me as the site owner.
Yeah.
So I think that's why they gave her so much leeway as to her time. But bottom line,
Hmm.
CRA, even for the experienced ones, could be stressful. You need a coach, okay? You need, first of
Hmm.
all, if you don't know what you're doing, if you've never been in this industry and you want to get in, I have the CRA Academy. But if you want to get coached, like if you're already in the industry but need help, you need a coach. Daniel's been running this coaching for quite some time. It's on thecracoach.com. Go check it out, and we'll be doing more videos. There's a couple other CRA coaches out there also. I've been talking to some, but there's plenty of demand. So you keep doing it,
Yeah.
Daniel. I might hire you
I'll
at
be
some point.
happy. Yeah, I'll be happy to help out any CRA, because basically that is what my main focus is on shifting from this stressful experience of a CRA. Of all this shit's been thrown at me, and I'm responsible for everything. And
Yeah.
if there's ever an audit and somebody finds out about this, it's all going to be on me, and so forth and so on. But I don't
Yes.
even have that much time to worry about it, because I only have 6 hours of sleep at the hotel, because tomorrow's the next visit or whatever. To a situation where you actually are, and know that you are in full control of all your tasks, and you're doing it in a relaxed manner. I mean, it's 2:57 in the afternoon while we're recording this, and I have time to do this interview on my free time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just told Dan earlier, I just had a week and a half off, and I just got back to work on Monday. And by Tuesday evening, obviously, I had 340,
300.
yeah, 340 emails during my PTO,
That's crazy.
and it came back on Monday. And by Tuesday evening, I knew exactly. I had 28 communication chains going on where I'm waiting for other people to get back to me. I had 12 action items for myself open at that point. Now I'm down to 2. After all, it's Friday afternoon now. Um, so it was interesting for me to be back in this mindset of complete overwhelm, and then see the transition through how I organize everything to the point where no, I'm back in the saddle,
Hmm.
everything's under control, and I'm not worried about having forgotten anything or stuff like that, and then actually you get to a point where I really love the job of a CRA. I mean, apart from the pay, which is awesome, and the career opportunities, you don't have to wait for your boss to kick the bucket in 15 years to get a promotion as a CRA.
Right.
And there are people who live in industries or in jobs where that is your reality. So we live in a
Hmm.
completely different reality there. We have career opportunities like crazy,
So many
and
people don't even they don't even realize that. And
absolutely,
just within the CRO
absolutely,
pharma space, there's so many. But if you start
yeah,
looking
yeah,
horizontally, like a lot of my clients
yeah,
are CRAs, such as yourself, that want to open their sites. And so
yeah.
that opens up a whole nother world of possibilities. Or others like you are doing little
There's so
side
many.
hustle gigs that
Yeah,
eventually become full-time gigs. So this
yeah.
is a great industry to be in. The CRAcoach.com. We're going to do this again, Daniel. Maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe 4 weeks, depending on our schedules, and
Okay.
we'll be in touch. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Looking forward to seeing you and Guru Nation then. Take care.
Take care. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for watching or listening. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.